This is the Lean Builders Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. Join us as we dig into exactly what lean construction is and how we can use these concepts and strategies in the field. This podcast will be different as we journey to job sites and mine the minds of lean builders, all in effort to pass forward building knowledge from those who have put their time in to learn a better way. Because that's just what lean builders do. What's up, y'all? Adam Hoots here, the Lean Builder Hoots on the Ground podcast with absolutely, positively no bullshito. And I promise you today, our guest has zero bullshito. Mr. Justin Uyar, welcome to the Lean Builder podcast, my friend. Why don't you tell us all a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, well, appreciate you having me, Adam, and looking forward to this. So, Justin Uyar, just start a little bit about me. First thing is I'm a man of faith, and that's important to me and guides me in a lot of the things I do, not just at work, but outside of work. I'm a husband, recently married. I've been married for about 6 weeks now.
Oh, wow. That's recent.
Yes, sir. Yep. October 22nd.
Where'd y'all honeymoon to?
We went to Cherokee, North Carolina.
Nice. A little
And then we're
casino
going
action.
Yeah. And then we're going on a cruise in February.
Ooh, where are you headed to?
Bahamas.
Oh, amen. Heck yeah, that's going to be fun.
I'm a son, a friend, and also a project superintendent.
Nice. What part of the country were you at? You're at Charlotte, right?
Yes, sir. Charlotte, North Carolina.
Amen. We had that breakfast not long ago, which was fantastic. People need to get on that next time, huh?
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%.
Well, who else are you? Like, go a little bit deeper for me.
Well, as far as what are my hobbies?
You tell me, bro. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from? Like, what?
Grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. So born and raised in Greenville.
I know that place. Oh,
went
yeah.
to school at Clemson University.
Hey, I know somebody
And,
else is doing that.
And
Nice.
a little bit ironic because I actually grew up a South Carolina Gamecock fan for football.
Whoa. We can't have any of that now. That's not okay.
You can edit that out later. But actually grew up a South Carolina fan. And ended up going to school at Clemson. So went to school. Good.
How does that happen? How does one grow up a Carolina Gamecock fan and then go to Clemson? You're gonna have to break that one down deeper.
Not mixing school with football. Went to Clemson for civil engineering. It's actually got a bachelor's in civil engineering, and initially thought that I wanted to be a structural engineer. So worked part-time for a structural engineering firm, and that's kind of what led me into the construction industry. So started out on the design side with a design path forward, and then said, man, this ain't for me. All the fun stuff's out in the field.
Amen.
So then when I graduated, I ended up working for a general contractor in Atlanta, and that's how I got into the industry.
Heck yeah. I love that. Well, tell me more about your construction career. I want to hear where you've been, what have you done? What's one of those things you drive by and you're like, I built that, you know?
The most recent one would have to be the Bank of America Tower in downtown Charlotte. So it sits right behind the Panthers stadium. If you watch a Panthers game on TV and they pan up from the end zone, you can actually see the tower. And it's the building itself is awesome, but one of the coolest features about it is it has a emergency elevator system. It has an OEO elevator. That system is actually designed to evacuate people in case of an emergency.
Huh. What is it, like a hyperspeed elevator or something?
A hyperspeed with added protection in the elevator lobby.
Gotcha. So it's like maybe 4 or 5 hour wall rated or something like that.
Still 2 hour walls, but the visual communication in there is awesome because what it does is there's screens in the lobby that'll tell you either A, if a car is available, and if it is, it'll tell you what car to go to.
Nice. Yeah.
So it'll say go to car 2, arriving in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I like it.
So once you're in there, you know, hey, this is the place to be, or no, I need to hit the stairwell and start working my way down.
Gotcha. Why the big move to Charlotte, North Carolina? If you're from Greenville, you went to Clemson, like what's wrong with South Carolina, my friend? Nice cut by. I like that.
Nothing wrong with it. So my met my fiance in Atlanta, who's my wife now, and she's got family up here in Charlotte. We decided to come up to Charlotte, be a little closer to her family and a little bit closer to my family in Greenville.
Smart man. Smart man.
Yes,
You
sir.
guys, that is a marriage that's gonna last right there. I can already feel that. You're making good choices. I love it. Well, what are you passionate about? Like what things kind of get you going and get you excited?
Learning is one of the biggest things, man. Is taking information from people around me, whether it's coworkers, friends, other people in the industry, and using that to make myself better. Learning from my mistakes. There's plenty of things that you do throughout your career and throughout your life that you say, man, I wish I didn't do that. Or man, I really learned from that situation. So it's taking that and not just getting over it or forgetting about it, but taking that information and feeding it back into the system, right? And putting it back into, hey, now I know this and I can use it in the future to avoid a situation or just make a situation better.
Ouch, that stove is hot. Ouch, that stove is hot. Yeah, stop doing it, right? Like stop touching the stove. Too often we don't do that though. We just keep on touching the damn stove. That's crazy. Well, so what kind of things what are you learning right now? Like what are you putting or investing energy into?
How to build more of a team culture.
Okay.
So
Tell
I'm
me
actually
more.
I'm actually reading a book now, and it's not construction related, but it's an awesome book. So 11 Rings by Phil
Oh,
Jackson,
nice. Yeah, I know Phil Jackson.
and basketball related book, but the concepts in there of how to get a team to buy into a common goal together is phenomenal because you got to take it outside of work. It's not just these are the goals, these are your responsibilities. It's understanding what motivates people, what drives people, what are people proud of, and putting that all together to accomplish something.
Amen, no doubt. I love that. Well, what else are you passionate about? What are you proud of? Like, that's what I'm trying to get to, baby.
Uh,
Like, come on,
man,
enlighten me.
I think the biggest thing I'm proud of recently, honestly, man, is getting married. That's a huge step in my life, a big step in our relationship, and I'm just ecstatic about where we're headed.
Can I ask how long did you make her wait?
No,
Not ask that. Should I edit this out?
you can. We've been together for 5 years.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That's not bad. I mean, that's
No.
pretty. Yeah, you feel it out. It's working. It's gonna work. I like it. Tell me more about her. Like, what's the best part about her? What do you love? Like, what
But so we're both animal lovers. So we have two dogs, a pit bull and a Rottweiler, and we just love them to death. And she works as a vet assistant at a
okay.
animal hospital. So the coolest thing is she'll learn something new, a new technique at work, right? And she'll come home and she'll put the dogs on their side and start feeling around them. And I'll be like, baby, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I learned this at work. I'm trying it on Hank.
Nice. I love it. Yeah. So is she going to be a vet one day, or is she content where she's at, or what's her?
She'll be a registered vet tech. So
Dang,
that's her next step. So her next step is getting that registered vet tech status.
I love it. Rottweiler and a pit bull, two real nice puppies, right?
Oh, they're soft. Yeah, they're soft. Totally not the perception of Rottweiler and Pit Bull you see on TV.
That's funny. So, well, I still wouldn't go breaking into the Uyar home. I know that much. Well, so I'm a huge fan of you. I love the way you think. I guess you've been a part of pretty much all of the superintendent coffees that we've done, and even quite a few of the South Carolina coffees. And you always bring some super refreshing thoughts and energy and just like a different perspective to the group. Your question game is super, super strong. I want to know Like where did all of that develop? Where did your question game come from?
So I think it comes from I'll start with this. I'll go on my rant for a minute. The industry we work in is broken.
Mm.
It's siloed, and the way we communicate, the way we interact with trade partners especially, but not just trade partners, with clients and designers, and the way we put everything together, it is a broken system. So I started asking why is the system like this? And I think what happens sometimes is we get used to the system being like this, learned helplessness. They did an old study with German Shepherds. And I don't remember exactly how they did it, but they put German Shepherds in a box, and they could shock one of them, and they wouldn't shock the other. And the German Shepherd could go between two different sections of the cage. When they switched cages, the German Shepherd that was getting shocked stayed getting shocked, even though he had the option to go to a different part of the cage.
Mm.
I think that's what we do sometimes in construction is we get used to it. There is an option, there is another way to do things, but we get used to, quite frankly, this is the way we've always done it.
Mm. Yeah, we're stuck. We kind of like that shock. That's not a good shock either.
Yeah.
So how do you change that, right? How do you, like, what steps do you do to take to get rid of that?
Conversations like this for one, and then being persistent, implementing it at the field level. So there's a ton of information out there in terms of tools and techniques to use, but having the persistence and the drive to take those tools and implement them at the project level where that ripple effect can happen is step one to me.
What are some of those tools you're talking about? What are some of those things you implement on your jobs or?
Daily huddle would be the foundation. I think that's where it all starts. The daily huddle allows for everybody to talk about what they're doing that day, areas they're working in, information they need, and it lets us identify the roadblocks, bring the roadblocks to the surface, and then we can address them. But even way beyond that, it's a team builder. It creates the habit of everybody interacting with each other for 20 minutes in the morning. And it sets that tone where, hey, I don't have to guess, I don't have to wonder, and I don't have to necessarily call Justin, the superintendent, for everything I need. We have a system where we're going to meet every morning and we're going to talk to each other. And it builds a little bit of trust between not only us as the GC and the trade partners, but between the trade partners themselves.
I love it. And how important is trust to what you're talking about? Like you mentioned earlier, you're learning about team culture and how to kind of develop that. And you mentioned the book 11 Rings. How much is trust important there?
I think trust is number one. Trust is the foundation that a team is built on. I mean, you could use a military example, right? You go into combat with somebody, you have to trust them. You have to trust that they have your best interest in mind as well as the team's best interest. What we do isn't combat, but it's a team atmosphere. You have to trust that what somebody's doing is in the best interest of the project.
Kind of like a new marriage, right? Like you got to trust that her intentions are on your best behalf, right? And vice versa. Your intentions are on her best behalf too. You're looking out for one another.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't, speaking as a superintendent, right? I can't be everywhere on the job site all the time.
Mm.
Same thing for a trade partner foreman. They can't be everywhere on the job site their guys are working. That level of trust goes throughout the whole project, but you have to trust that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do and they're doing it with the right intentions.
What things do you do to be intentional about building trust on your jobs?
Getting to know somebody first, getting to know them on a little bit of a personal level. You'd be amazed, man. It just one thing that I've done recently is everything that we write down in terms of task on a project, we do by first name basis. So if we're putting something on the board, it's not trade partner ABC, it's John. And that builds a level of trust and a little bit of a level of pride, right? Now you see it. Now John says, hey, that's on me. I need to clear the way because Tim's coming behind me with his crew.
Amen. And so this is how you're running Last Planner system. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Nice. So you're actually putting the foreman's name on the sticky.
Absolutely.
Are you guys do you use a software for that, or are you using just the old fashioned sticky notes?
No, old school sticky notes.
I love that.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing wrong with that. It
Well,
ain't broke.
because it forces everybody to be in a room together. There's some magic about being around each other, and then the conversations that happen afterwards, right? So when we're done with that huddle or we're done with that meeting, then guys break off and they keep talking about the work, but then they also say, "Hey, man, how was your weekend? Hey, how are the kids doing?"
Amen. You can still do some of that. I mean, again, I think, like the coffee cup you're drinking, Bosch has got a pretty amazing program that is really simple to use, and you can still get people in the room, put it up on the board. What I like about it is it takes some human error out, right? It runs your PPC for you. It puts those things right in front of you, but it's not tangible and it's not in front of you all the time. And so, for that reason, I love kind of running both of them in parallel. But anyways, I get sidetracked way too much.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know that you fully answered my question. I'm gonna toss it out there again, and I'm curious where, like, so two things. One, where did you get your question game? But then two, how does that question game help you when it comes to building team culture?
The question game is a little bit of a learned behavior, because what I've learned is people usually only answer or only tell you part of the answer, or they tell you what you want to hear.
Yes,
So
yes.
a
Tell
lot
me
of times,
more.
in conversations, people have already thought about what it is they're going to say.
Yeah.
So they have their 10-second response to the conversation on what they're going to say. And that 10-second response may only be 60% of the story. So then taking the information from that and saying, okay, well, tell me more about that, or tell me why you chose that path, or hey, what outcome did you expect with this process, will lead into a deeper understanding of what the issue is.
Yeah. So I still don't know that. I guess maybe I'm looking for a prescription and you're giving me a description, which is fine because it almost seems like it's innate. You say it's a learned behavior, and I hear you saying like people usually just kind of water ski, as Jen Lacey would say, but you're able to like peel them back a little bit deeper and to understand it based on asking them open-ended questions to make them think. That's what I hear you telling me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you're looking for a prescription, I would say the starting point is ask the question that they're not expecting.
Mm. And then what?
And then from there, you should get more of an honest response. Once you have that honest response and you have the meaning or the process behind the answer, then the possibilities are endless.
Yeah. You just got to sit back and listen to them, right? And let them go to town because that's, people love to talk, baby. You get them going.
Yeah, but that's the challenge, is getting them going. A lot of times it takes those questions, right? And it takes the tell me more about that to get them started. And what most people do is they're already thinking about their response, and it takes away from actively listening.
Absolutely. Sometimes there'll even be some pretty awkward pauses in there, even in these conversations, because, I think it's important to take it in, to digest it, and then to respond. I think Stephen Covey said, listen to understand, not to respond. And that's huge when you think about that, especially, again, you mentioned our industry is broken. I think a lot of it can lead back or trace back to the fact that we are listening to respond to folks. We don't listen to understand. We don't listen to understand what the problems are. We listen to just be able to solutionize or solution shank, as Mr. Jesus Hernandez says. And instead of like taking in the problem, studying the problem until the problem solves itself, really. So, how do you use all this stuff on the job site? You mentioned daily huddles. Like, how else, like, what other tools are you using? What things are you doing to build trust? Or how does all that relate to building a team culture?
So as far as tools, we use a lot of visual communication as well. So
Okay.
if you can, to me, my motto is if you can see it, you can build it. Whether it's a highlighted floor plan about work
Yeah.
areas or a blown up, we've done blown up details before, and it's highlighting each person's scope, right, and the order it's going in. So doing things like that, basically a little cheat sheets is what I like to call them. So if we can make a cheat sheet for it and it's got a little bit of color in it and the information in it, then we're winning
I
because
love it.
we're boiling it down to something that is easily understandable. And it also sets the expectation.
So can you give me a for instance of a cheat sheet that you're talking about?
Take a envelope section that shows waterproofing and the facade of a building. We'll take that, highlight each trade partner scope, the order that we're doing it in, and then what our checks and balances are in that process. Where do we stop and say, okay, let's pause and make sure this is good, or let's pause and at this point we're water testing to check before the next trade goes.
Hell yeah, I love that, man. That's a great idea. And what is all like using these tools and making things simple, visualizing them? How does that relate back to the team culture?
Well, that helps build the trust. I think a lot of times, especially with trade partners, is the GC's viewed as the guy that's always pounding them, hey, do this, do this, do this. Part of building that trust and building that team is saying, hey, I want this to work for you. A lot of what we do is create situations where there's a winner and a loser.
Hmm.
And I want to create situations where it's win-win. Part of developing that trust is saying, hey, I have your best interest in mind too.
Man, win-win situations are tough to create. You really got to do some thinking and get outside the box. And actually, they're not really that hard when you dive down to better understand what winning actually looks like.
To tag onto that, to
Yeah.
create the win-win can mean that the solution you proposed isn't what you do. You have to be a little bit vulnerable and put your ego aside to create the situations. Sometimes the thing standing in the way of something going well is yourself.
Why does that happen so often in construction?
I think it's a pride thing. It's an ego-driven business, right? We drive by these buildings and we look at them for what they are, the physical structure and the steel and the glass. And I think sometimes we take for granted the process and people and relationships built during that project.
Absolutely. I know society does. I mean, society doesn't value construction or craft workers the way they should by any means. And that's a shame. And that's one of the things I'm working to change. I know you have a big passion there as well. Tell me what things are you doing to contribute to that mission of just bringing respect back for the trade workers?
Respecting them first, right? To make any change, it has to start with you, and you got to be intentional about it. So, taking the time, I'll tell you a fantastic conversation I had recently
Yeah.
was with an electrician named Johnny, and they were pulling wire, and he's over there and he's on the tugger and he's pulling wire. And I go up and hey man, how's your day going? And we talk for a little bit. And I said, hey, tell me about what you're doing. I said, educate me a little bit. And he explains to me how the tugger works and the different pressures and how you know if you're catching a snag in the conduit. And then I had this confused look on my face, and he says, "Well, I'll put it to you like this." He says, "The pedal's like a bait caster.
Hmm.
If you let the pressure off, then it'll let the pressure off the pool." And his face just is lit up, man, because nobody stops and asks him. Nobody says, "Hey, just explain to me what you're doing."
Yeah.
So I said, how can we make this? I said, how can we make this better? And I'm looking around, and I said, how could we make this process better for you? And I'm thinking about something that we can do right there in the moment, right? And he says, man, the best thing that would make this process better is if they didn't put so many 90s in the run that we had to pull through. It really hit me because a lot of times what we do is look at the situation we're in right now and we say, hey, what change can we make right now that's going to affect right now? And we forget that the decisions and the things we do now have a great effect on what happens 6 months from now.
Yeah, it's those downstream decisions or those upstream decisions even that have those ripples of impact, and sometimes those aren't always positive, like we commonly refer to them as.
Sure.
I love it, man. What else? I love the story. What other construction stories you got out there? Superintendent, kind of front lines. I'm sure you've got some other good stories in there. What you got?
Man, I think my favorite story, we did a school job about 6 years ago. It was the second job I did in the industry. And several times we had to move the principal and a couple of key teachers' offices during the renovation and the addition. And so one day we get a call from the principal and just very upset because the school board says, hey, we're bringing in this extra staff and we don't know where to put them. And we hadn't planned for any temporary offices for them or anything like that. So they said, hey, we're adding a couple of people to your school and we had nowhere to put them. So we end up in a matter of 2 weeks going in and splitting apart these 2 offices and turning them into 4.
Oh,
And
man.
then helping her actually move in, like actually taking her books and setting them up and setting her office up. And man, the smiles on their face is burned in my brain. That's
I
probably
love it.
one of my favorite moments in the industry.
Yeah, you were able to pull something off that nobody thought possible. Heck yeah.
Yeah, that and just seeing the satisfaction of being able to make a school teacher happy, right? Somebody that has so much effect on what's the word I'm looking for? A school teacher that has so much effect on the future.
Yeah, amen. The whole next generation. Absolutely. Let me hit you with another question here.
Yeah,
How would you define a lean builder?
I would say a lean builder is someone who takes the time to understand the system as a whole, that respects the time and resources it takes to create something and respects people during that process.
Man, you just opened up a whole nother can of worms in my book. Take me down the respects people. Like, what does that mean to you?
Setting up processes and situations that are friendly to people. That could be setting up working hours and setting up schedules that aren't super tight or that aren't working 12 hours a day. It's putting in the work up front to say, hey, we're gonna put everybody in a situation where they can succeed and they feel valued, and we take their input and actually use it.
Yeah, because it's even worse when you take their input and you don't use it. That makes it 10 times worse.
That or use it against them.
Ooh, yeah, that's even, wow. See, I love the way you think, man. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean the favorite one of the favorite things that happens to me on the job is when somebody calls me and says, "Hey, we have a problem." Because to me, now we've identified it, and we can take your experience and my experience and someone else's experiences and figure out the problem.
Yeah. So you're not a bring me a solution guy, you're a bring me a problem guy?
Bring me a problem so we identify it. The last thing that I want is problems to be hidden. If there's a problem, I don't want it ignored. I don't want it hiding by the wayside. I want all the problems brought up to the surface. Once we identify it, then we'll attack the solution.
Again, so total respect there. Why doesn't our industry think that way?
Blame, and I don't know if that's the way the contract system is set up, but
Yeah.
we're a blame industry, right? If something goes wrong, who do we blame? Who do we back charge? Whose fault is it?
It's a liability deal. Yeah.
Sure, 100%. So
You're
that
guilty until proven innocent.
yeah, and then blaming. Well, why did you do that? Well, why did you mess up? maybe they didn't mess up. Maybe the plan would have never worked to begin with.
Yeah.
If you have 10 days worth of work and we only gave them 5, it was never going to happen anyway.
So let's plan it right up front, right? Like, let's get the last planners involved. Let's get the people doing the work involved. And I think that's exactly what you're doing on your jobs, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, trying to, and it's a learning process, and there's things that we take and we say, okay, well this didn't work. Let's try it a little bit differently. Even something as simple as the morning huddle. We'll take the feedback from the guys and say, hey, we prefer doing it at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of 7.
With biscuits, Justin. We all know we love biscuits at the daily huddles.
Yeah.
Well, so I don't know if you did it intentionally, but the word culture just like irks me. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, thanks. So the team culture, learning about team culture
Mhm.
thing, that was all that was pre-planned.
It was a little intentional.
It was scripted. Well, so I'm curious, are there any words out there that just bother you or bug the heck out of you? Any phrases, any words?
Some that bother me are I'd rather be lucky than good.
Huh.
It,
Why does that bother you so bad?
to me, let's focus on being good and implementing good processes. Variation happens, right? Shit happens,
Yeah, all
but let's not rely on luck.
the time.
Luck's just hoping. We're just wishing at that point that something well happens.
I say you can hope in one hand and something in the other hand.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
PG rated podcast, right?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know what to do.
Another one too that bothers me recently, and I hope we change this in the future, is sometimes I'll get, oh, you do lean on this job.
Ooh, it's like that four-letter word is what you're saying?
Well, not just that, but they say, oh, you do lean, as if lean's only coloring blueprints and moving sticky notes around, right? It leans a philosophy and an approach to making things better and improving and respecting people. And we need to normalize that. It shouldn't be, oh, you do lean on this job. It should be, this is the standard on how projects should be run.
Yeah, period. Where's my specification on that, man? I love what you just said. And I think a lot of times people do equivalate lean construction with that pool planning stuff or those sticky notes. And yeah, it's a lot of sticky notes. And yes, I got Sharpies and stickies and all kinds of stuff around me right now. But it's a way of thinking, right? And I tell people often when I coach them, it's there's like three levels. There's different levels of abstract to this. And I got this from Nicholas Modig's book, This Is Lean. But there's like the fruit level. So when I say fruit, that's kind of like lean as a strategy, lean as a whole. And then you can break that down into apples and oranges and bananas and different categories of fruit. And now you're getting into those concepts, those pauses and reflects, those principles that we talk about. And then you can break them into Granny Smith apples or Gala apples, and those become the tools. And so when you're thinking about it, the level of abstract, I think that's why it's so hard for people to grasp what is lean, because it is a way of thinking. It is following principles, understanding efficiencies, but it's also tools. There are also tools where we can express those things. And so I guess I'll pause there and I'd love to hear your perspective.
Well, it's I think some people view it as a chicken and an egg, right? It is what came first, the tools or the approach and philosophy.
Yeah.
And if we took the tools away, and it wasn't sticky notes, but it was another form of doing the same thing, it's what are we trying to accomplish? And we're trying to accomplish eliminating waste, respecting people, continuously improving.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
tools give us a vehicle to do that.
Yeah, like you said, they surface our problems, right? The tools don't solve the problems for you. The tools surface the problems. And even that's why I think sometimes lean is like people look at it like, oh, it's that lean stuff again. Yeah, because it calls you out. Like, when done appropriately, we just want to fix the things that are wrong. And when you can visualize things, that's when that happens.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So another one that I wouldn't say it bothers me, but I wish we said it a little bit different, is a lot of times you hear people say, "Oh man, he's such a hard worker."
Mm.
And you have to be hardworking in this industry. You have to be hardworking to succeed in anything in life. But sometimes I wish we said it a little bit differently, where we said, "Hey, he's such a smart worker," and put a little the planning and efficiency side of things.
Well, define that. So to help me understand, what's a smart worker versus a hard worker? And how is it similar? How's it different?
A smart worker identifies the work, gathers all the tools they need, takes the time to see the problem, and then act on it. A lot of times a hard work, and that can also be a hard worker. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. But
Okay. Yeah.
sometimes you can be a hard worker and you're just running into fires and you're not stopping to say, "Hey, how did we get here? How can I improve it?" You're just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing to try to get something done.
Yeah. Keon Zandy, one of the authors of The Lean Builder, actually wrote a blog called The Firefighter Arsonist. And so basically the concept is like, I'm running around starting all my own fires, and then I get to run around and put out all the fires. And that's exactly what you're hinting at here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hitting that. I'll be frank. I don't want my phone to ring. I want to say that, hey, and this is in a perfect world, right, without any variation. But I want to say that, hey, we've planned the work, we've communicated the work, we've set the expectations. Now we got to go do it. If my phone's ringing 40, 50 times a day, that means we're not doing those three things.
And how often do you hear superintendents bragging about how much their phone rings or how busy they were and how they didn't? No, I didn't read your email. I'm in the field. Like, oh my goodness, don't get me started.
No, get started, dive into it, right? I mean, it's a little bit of an illusion. Just because we're doing something doesn't mean we're moving forward.
Ooh, yeah, the difference between production and being busy, right? Being busy and being productive are two totally different things.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head with busy, right? We can be busy, not productive. We can
Hmm.
have a ton of work in progress and not be getting shit done.
Amen. I think this will be fun. Let's shout some people out who have made just a difference in your life or your career or just kind of helped you to get you where you are. I would love to hear some of those names.
Okay, let's do it. To start, my best friend and best man at my wedding, Mike O'Feely. We work together in Atlanta, and he's a project manager in Miami now. And he's had a huge, huge influence on me because he's such a people person. He's always saying, "Hey, what about the people? What do they think? How do they feel about this?" Such a people person.
Bien bendito, ami, ami. Yeah, baby.
And he puts a ton of value into work life balance,
Yes.
which is an odd term in itself, right? I mean, to me, it's life balance, but
Amen, brother. That's what I say too.
he puts a ton of thought into work life balance, which really made a difference in the way I approach it.
Good.
Another one would be my current boss, Earl Hyatt. So he's one of those guys that he has forgotten more about construction than I know,
That's
and,
amazing.
and just bleeds knowledge, right? And just the way that he can look at something and see 4 steps ahead is phenomenal. And he's really taught me, and still learning from him, but he's really taught me a lot of that.
Yeah, that's such a unique skill set, and you really can't. It's hard to teach that. Sometimes it's just innate, but you can be around it so much that that experience kind of starts to wear on you. I've had a couple of superintendents like that in my career that just like, wow, how did you get that out of looking at 2D plans? I have no idea how you came up with that, but you're dead right. I love that. Heck yeah. Who else? What else?
Yeah, 100%. So my first manager, Bush, had a huge influence, and he's still mad at me to this day because when I started, I actually started out on the office side of things. So I told you I had a little bit of an engineering background. So when I
Yeah.
started in the construction industry, I started as a traditional office project engineer.
An office puke is what they called me.
Yeah, office labor. Yeah. So he had a huge influence on teaching me good work habits, way to structure work, how to process information, and how the whole system works, right? What our role is, what's the role of the trade partners, what the client's role is, and looking at things from a system point of view. And I know he's still mad at me to this day because after a couple of months, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go play out in the field, and y'all can do the office work."
He's still waiting for you to come back. Poor EC in there doing change orders and RFIs, waiting for Justin to come back to help.
Something like that, yeah.
That's awesome, man. I love that. I can tell those people are big on your list because you just got this smile on your face that's like, yeah, you're proud of it. Heck yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's one of the beauties. The industry's broken, but the industry's beautiful. That's one of the beauties about what we do is you develop some good relationships with people. Some of my best friends I've met in construction.
Amen. This is awesome. I love it. What else? What else do you want to get out to the world? Anything?
Yeah, I guess a challenge, right? But I challenge every superintendent on a job to do more pausing and reflecting.
Mm.
Because that's really changed the way I approach things. And I think it can open up your mind a little bit. We get in a habit of we're staring down a deadline, right? And we're rush, 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 and we're underwater. And then at the end of the job, we come up for air and then we dive back into the next one. And being intentional about taking intermediate, pausing and reflecting and saying, hey, we've done this on a past couple of jobs, but for some reason it's not working on this one. And let's find that root cause. Let's find why it's not working and feed that back into the system.
Yeah, you're kind of bringing us full circle here, and that's learning, right? Like that's improvement, that's getting better, and that's what lean truly is, in my opinion. That's when we're starting to improve as human beings, and man, we need more of that.
Yeah, 100%. What's your tips for pausing and reflecting? Because I know you're passionate about that topic as well.
I'm super passionate about it. I should have known it wouldn't be long before you tried to turn the tables. This is not about me, sir. How about you answer your own question there? How do you pause and reflect?
By being intentional about it, and I'll give you an example, is I'll actually set block out period of time on my phone, on my calendar that I just call reflection.
Mm.
And so I'm going to stop what I'm doing for those 30 minutes and turn the phone off, right? And reflect on the past week, what we've done, situations, things we're doing right, wrong, and then also getting feedback. I start every trade meeting with open table. What are we doing good and bad?
Amen.
And it's not me. I don't want to be the one to answer that. It's as a team. What are we doing?
You get good participation in that?
Yeah, it took some time, right? It took time to get good participation. It's awkward at first, right? You ask that question, and a lot of times what people do is they'll say the good things, but then they won't say what they want to improve on, and they're dancing around it, right? Because you don't want to call anybody out or throw anybody under the bus, so to speak. So it takes a little bit of time building that team, building that trust for people to say, hey, I see this happening and I think it could improve.
Yeah. If that ever gets stale, you could do a start, stop, continue exercise too. That's always fun. Just what should we start? What should we stop? What should we continue? It's the same thing. Again, you've got to build that trust if you're going to have healthy team culture, if you're going to have a team that's truly fighting for one another. There's no other way around it. You've got to develop trust. Then you can have the healthy conflict. Then you can make commitments and hold each other accountable for results.
Right. And I like the way you put that, healthy conflict. Conflict's not a bad thing.
Not at all.
Pressure is not a bad thing. It's, are we healthy in the way we go about it?
Yep.
Or is the commitment just what I'm making up and forcing on you? Or did we come up with this plan together and now we're going to row the boat together until we finish?
There's some stress can be good for you, right? If it's too little stress, it's like, I'm a little bored. Then if it gets like you can get into that optimal, I don't know if you remember we talked about the Yerkes Dodson curve, and it's got like right at that optimal level of stress, you're performing at your best. But then when you get to be too much stress, you start to cause anxiety and people start to shut down. And sometimes that's what happens when I introduce lean to people, to be honest with you. You're like, oh my goodness, this guy's crazy. He's got too much going on here. But I love it, man. Heck yeah.
Sure, and it can be overwhelming, right? I mean, there's a ton of information out there, but my biggest piece of advice would be pick one thing and create that habit. If it's visually communicating, if it's daily huddles, if it's just, hey, I'm gonna start identifying everybody by their first name instead of the company they work for.
Yes.
Take that and create the habit.
Be intentional about it, right? Be intentional about stopping. Like, I know we don't do that often in construction, but yes, stop and look back and say, "Whew, look at everything I've done. Well, that was good. That was probably shouldn't do that one again, or that was great." Like that's how we get better as an industry. That's how we fix a broken industry or broken system. Because right now we are getting the results that our system is designed to provide us. I mean, we've done it, like you said, whether it's through liabilities or it's a lack of trust or it's, whatever the case is, the system is performing the way it should. And we are victims of those results right now. What I love about folks like you and Davis and Tom and Jess, like all these people we're saying, time out. We're not victims. We're going to be victors of this situation and we're changing it. And we are bringing a different look to construction and folks are getting on board slowly but surely. How do we get more folks involved? How do we really escalate this and scale this excellence that we have going on?
I think it starts at the job site. I think it's taking people that you can loop in. And the one thing that I think we in our community need to focus on and be intentional about is getting trade partners looped in. We spend a lot of time at the management and GC level, but bringing in trade partners and really saying, hey, what do you think about this? How do you feel? How would you change this?
Yeah, I'm actually super excited, and I'm telling you first right here in front of everybody that watches this, but I'm getting ready to partner with ABC right there in Charlotte, Miss Amy Hicks and Miss Sarah Bregeman, and we're going to be introducing a lean program for trade partners through ABC Carolinas. And I'm fired up about it. They've done something similar in New Orleans, but it's been primarily focused on project managers and that sort of thing, kind of supervisory. We're diving into the trades and we're going to show them why lean is important for them to know the 8 ways, the 5S, how they can operate with a pause and reflect and the comfort. Like, we're going to take this all out. We're going to help them look for hard work, man. We are going to make a difference in the Carolinas. We're going to the trade partners, right? We're not going to keep going to, the same old events, and they know who I'm talking about. And it's the same old crowd, owners and GCs and maybe a designer. And where's our trade partners? They're out on the job site, like you just said. That's where they are, and that's where they should be, right? That's where we should be. That's where lean should be. I love the fact that there's a bunch of change makers out there that are making that possible. And thank you for being one of those.
Yeah, and thank you, man. That's awesome. I appreciate that you just shared that, and I'm one of your biggest fans, man. So anything that I can do to support, I'm all for it.
Come on, come be a part of it. Come help me instill change. Like, tell your trade partners, I'm sure some of them are already members of ABC, but if not,
Yeah.
come to the leadership retreat. That's going to be in the Pinehurst in February. I get to go down there and help. I get to do a little speaking and maybe even play a little golf while we're down there. It'll be a good time.
And you said something interesting there about the trade partners, but that's one of the things that when you say this is lean, right, and it scares people, is some of these things are things that people are already doing, right? Like material management. I don't know how many times that I've had a trade foreman tell me, hey, I don't want all this material here. I only want the material here that I can manage.
Yeah. or else
And
it's
it's
going to
like,
get damaged or go missing, or
right. And it's like that is lean. That is 100% a lean principle, right?
yeah, and
And
they
it may
get it
not,
because they've been burned before.
yeah, and it may not be called lean, but that's what it is.
And there's a lot of that out there where there's like this bullshito where these new school lean consultants or lean coaches have come in here and said, "Oh, you got to call it this or you got to call it that," or and it's total bullshito, man. You don't have to call it anything as long as you're practicing. And again, finish as you go. That's another concept. Like old
Mhm.
school superintendents, they know I don't want to go start a million different things and have my work in progress be too much because I'll never get anything done. And these are things that we just learn over time through experiments. And then all of a sudden they make sense. And so, wouldn't it be a concept if we could teach these earlier on so that less people had to learn the experiential way that a lot of us did? I think it would be a beautiful thing.
Yeah, 100%, man. I think information and education are the keys to changing this.
Well, we're on it, man. We're gonna do what we can to make it happen. I would love for you. We're getting down to the end here. I would love
Yeah,
for you to just take us out with a bang, whatever that looks like. If you want to preach to the next generation or the current generation or the old generation or all the generations, go get them, Justin. What do you got? Lay it on us. What's the wisdom of the day?
I'll end on this. One thing that I've learned is don't let the message get lost in the way you deliver it.
Wow, that's powerful.
And expanding on that is being very intentional about the way that you approach situations, the way that you talk to people. You may be saying the right thing, but in the wrong way, and that meaning got lost in everything, right?
That's deep.
I use this analogy, right? I'm a big steak guy. If you cook the perfect steak and then you took a garbage can lid, turn it upside down, and put the steak on it, I'm not eating it.
That was awesome. Holy crap. I ain't eating that steak either. I don't care how perfect it is.
Right. So,
I love a little Pittsburgh style on my steak. Cooked medium, maybe medium rare. Like, oh my goodness, dude.
yeah, but
My
but
mouth is watering now.
but yeah, I'd end on that, man. Don't let the message get lost in the way you deliver it.
Don't serve your filet on a garbage can lid. You heard it here from Mr. Justin Uyar. Dude, I appreciate you coming on. This has been fun. I'm a huge fan. I love the way you think, and I'm just honored to be around you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I'll see you next week at the LCI planning.